Hello, everyone. Today we will be reviewing the third installment of the. I don't know why I did that, but anyway, the third installment of the Batman series with Christian Bale, being The Dark Knight Rises, as we all know. This movie came out in 2012. Unfortunately, it was the last in the series, despite probably being the movie with the biggest cliffhanger at the end. I would say introducing the character of there was some sort of speculation for a couple of years as to whether it was going to be Robin or Nightwing, just based on his age, I guess. I would say probably more they were leaning more towards the Nightwing side of things. That's just my guess, but anyhow, this movie, as far as villains go, I would say was probably the best out of the three films. And maybe that's just a little bit of bias, just because I know that Heath Ledger did an incredible job on the Joker. I just don't think it was the best. Looking back now, I just don't think he was the best villain out of all these movies. Maybe that's just because I like Bane. He's my favorite. I know a lot of people might hate me for that, but that's okay. Bane has always been my favorite villain in the DC universe. At least as far as the Batman series goes. So, this movie starts off with Bruce Wayne basically staying in hiding. He hasn't shown his face in 8 years. There's a whole Blackgate prison is filled with prisoners from the Dent Act. Nobody really knows what happened to Dent still to this day, 8 years later. Everybody just blames the Batman because he took the fall for what Dent actually did, as we know from the last movie. Dent turned into Two-Face due to the Joker's manipulation, and they're basically trying to cover that up, making him look like the hero, even though we all know Batman was the real hero who saved Commissioner Gordon's kids at the end of the second movie. And now we lead back into this character, Bane, who is basically part of the League of Shadows, like Batman was originally, but he follows the League of Shadows rules, basically creating chaos when there really isn't even any there, and then basically creating division amongst the people, and then killing them all at the end is his end goal. Yeah. Tom Hardy, who I didn't realize even played Bane when this movie originally came out, even though I had seen him in other movies by that point. I'm not exactly sure what order. I'm not sure if Rock and Roller was out before this movie or not. But this was a different interpretation of Bane, I suppose, as opposed to like from the comics or even the video games, because I've seen many different depictions, if that's correct. Usually he has like a full, almost like a luchador mask, I suppose. It's black and white, and you can't see. I don't think you can see anything, like any part of his face in the mask. But this one was different, I guess, due to just the storyline that they were trying to go for. So it's more like a breathing apparatus. So he has kind of like a very weird voice, but it just worked for this movie. Sometimes it can be hard to understand, but I've seen this movie enough. I catch most of the lines. Probably one of my favorite scenes is where Anna Hathaway's character Selina Kyle, also aka Catwoman, basically baits Batman into going to meet Bane, and then Bane beats him to the point where he literally just like breaks him in half, after basically showing him that his plan all along was to break into Bruce Wayne's armory. And one of the characters, Miranda Tate, there's this story consistently throughout the movie after Bruce Wayne and Bane fight, or Batman and Bane fight. He's taken to this prison called the Pit, and there's this consistent story of this child escaping from the pit. And she had this protector, and then there was this mercenary who slept with this woman who was under the rule of I can't remember what the wording was on that. But she was under some sort of man of power, and this mercenary was supposed to be condemned to a lifetime in the pit. And then instead of that, they exiled him into the desert, in which case the girl that he was having an affair with gets exiled to the pit herself. She was pregnant with the child, so the doctor of the prison takes care of them. Unfortunately, one day the cell door was left open. She was protected by this person who it's believed to be the doctor. That's kind of the way they make it look at the beginning. Turns out at the end of the movie, Miranda Tate, the older character, was actually the child, even though it was made to look like the child was Bane, and Bane was her protector. By the time the League of Shadows took him in, the rest of the prison inmates and the doctor had already done their work, so he was basically, in the eyes of Ra's al Ghul, he was a monster. So they exiled him from the League of Shadows, and he kind of became his own leader. And we all know at this point that Ra's al Ghul is dead, even though when Bruce Wayne is in the pit, he has a vision of Ra's al Ghul, and kind of making him realize that he has to get out of the pit in order to go back and save Gotham. I would say this movie, Bane's plans were always more calculated than any of the other previous villains, because you have to kind of be in the mind of Bane almost for most of this movie, just based on the fact that he takes down the stock. He goes in to take down the stock exchange, but it was all just a distraction to keep away from his real plan of basically taking over Bruce Wayne's reactor. Is that? I think it was a reactor, yeah. Because Miranda Tate is trying to get this clean energy project going, and she knows that with the help of Bruce Wayne, she can do it because he shows her this reactor and shows her how to flood it in case it gets into the wrong hands. Well, then eventually, due to the fact that Bruce Wayne is in the pit, Bane is able to get his hands on it. They take the reactor out of the core and transport it around the city, leaving it with only 5 months before it detonates on its own anyway. So then when Batman comes back, that's when he finally realizes that Miranda Tate was actually Ra's al Ghul's child and Bane was her protector. So because of this, she floods the place. Basically, she's trying to find any way for the bomb to go off and destroy Gotham so that Ra's al Ghul's destiny can be fulfilled of getting rid of Gotham, because they believe that Gotham is corrupt. Which, I mean, Gotham isn't really the best place to live, if you know, because it's basically filled with criminals and so on and so forth. But Batman is able to save the day because he has, by this point, the flying machine called the Bat, or at least that's what Fox deemed it as. But it has no autopilot, so at the end of the movie, Batman flies it out over the bay, the reactor core, it blows up. You think that he is dead, and then they have this little funeral scene. Um, and then Alfred goes over to the place he talked about earlier on in the movie. I can't remember the exact location, but he said he always had this vision of ordering the drink that he always had on vacation, looking across the restaurant and seeing Bruce. He wouldn't say anything to him. Bruce wouldn't say anything back to Alfred. They would just simply nod at one another and know that he had made it and he was okay. And at the end of the movie, that is exactly what happens. So you know that Bruce Wayne is now living his life not as Batman, but just as Bruce Wayne, so he can continue on and just leave all that behind him. So I think that's basically all I have to say about the movie. Other than the fact that Tom Hardy, I thought, did a phenomenal put on a phenomenal performance as a villain in this movie. Probably one of my other favorite movies with him was Mad Max, and I know there's supposed to be a second one coming sometime, whenever that may be now, due to the fact that we are in a pandemic right now, unfortunately. So I'm sure that filming and other things are kind of hard to do unless you kind of have the money to do it independently, I suppose, and bring people on and restrictions and rules that they have to follow. It's just very tough to do anything right now with a large group of people. But yeah, I think that's probably, I didn't realize it was Tom Hardy when I first saw this, just based on the mask too, because it's all you can see really is his eyes, and he's completely bald. Usually he has a little bit of hair, and probably the amount of muscle he put on for this role, like, holy crap. In some scenes, you can tell that, like, he gets up very slowly, because he was probably close to, like, 300 pounds in this movie, just of pure muscle, I would say. If not, he was definitely over 250. He had to be. So I'm sure putting on that much muscle mass when you're not used to that in a short amount of time for a movie role is probably difficult on anybody's body. And I think Christian Bale might have been had a little bit more muscle mass in this movie as well, but it wasn't quite as noticeable as Tom Hardy, obviously, because if you've seen some of his other movies, he is a little bit of a slimmer dude. Not not lacking that he, not saying that he's lacking in muscle, but compared to that, oh my god. But yeah, this movie was definitely a 10 out of 10 for me. I would highly recommend that if you're going to watch the Batman movies, obviously watch them all, but it's not really like you need to watch all of them to completely understand this story, because each one was kind of like its own independent story, and it does kind of tell you a little bit of the backstory of what happened previously. I guess you know Harvey Dent. You don't really need to know the Joker, and it kind of touches on who Ra's al Ghul was, and it tells you about the League of Shadows, so you kind of have some sort of knowledge. But I mean, if you want the full knowledge, definitely go and watch the whole movie series. Other than that, I think that's about all I have to say about this film. The acting was good. Anne Hathaway's character was Catwoman, if I didn't mention that already. Selina Kyle, we all kind of know that. She did a really phenomenal job in this role, I think, too. I guess, I don't know if I knew beforehand if she was going to be Catwoman or how she was going to fit in to this story, but yeah, she did phenomenally as well in that role. I don't know if I haven't really seen her in much lately, to be honest. And Christian Bale has kind of changed his acting since this movie. I would say a little bit. He doesn't do the whole superhero thing anymore. Tom Hardy still does, because he was in Venom. What was that, last year or 2 years ago maybe now? So he's honestly made the switch, because as you can see, he was Bane in this movie, and then he moved on to Mad Max, and then he switched over to Marvel, which I am excited for those ones as well. And I will be doing a review of Venom here very soon, and the movie Warrior, if anybody's seen that. But now I'm kind of rambling on and just talking about what's coming, as well as the other Batman movies too. I kind of have a list, and I don't think that I'm going to follow any sort of schedule anymore, because this maybe that was what was the problem, was I was just kind of overwhelming myself with the schedule, and kind of during Christmas holidays it's hard to get into any sort of routine with this, and I just like to be able to sit down and watch the films and not have to worry about a deadline, right? It makes it a little more difficult. So I'm just going to upload kind of more sporadically when I can, because I'm going to be uploading to 2 channels now. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Hopefully I will have, once I get a better, what's the word I'm looking for, software program to edit my videos, I will have a review of the new Call of Duty game coming. I know it's late, but I still want to get that out there. So that is all I'm going to say for this video, because I've been rambling now for probably an extra 6 minutes about what's coming, but I just kind of wanted to get that in there in this video. And that's all for now. I believe I put my rating as 10 out of 10. Yes, I did, now that I remember. And please like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.